No one expected that Amber Kavanaugh, a mother who tragically passed away during childbirth, would become the voice of comfort and hope for many. Her peaceful near-death experience, where she encountered deceased loved ones, left her with a powerful message about life after death. Amber's story quickly spread, offering reassurance to those fearing the unknown of what comes after life. Amber Kavanaugh, a loving mother from New Zealand, had always looked forward to the day she would welcome her new baby into the world. It was supposed to be a moment of joy, of new beginnings, but instead, it turned into something she could never have expected. During childbirth, complications arose that caused Amber's heart to stop. In those final moments, as her body gave out, Amber's spirit began to journey to a place far beyond the realm of earthly experience. It was as if everything she had known and experienced on Earth simply faded away. The intense pain, the urgency, the sterile hospital environment, all of it disappeared into the background, leaving behind an overwhelming sense of peace. Amber found herself in a space of absolute tranquility, a place where the air seemed filled with a light so pure it felt almost tangible. There were no harsh lights, no beeping machines or bustling nurses, only the most serene calmness, as though the world itself had paused. As Amber looked around, she saw a soft glow surrounding her, and it felt as if she was being enveloped by love. She could sense, even without fully understanding how, that this place was not of this world. It was not a dream or a hallucination. It was something much more profound. Amber wasn't alone. She wasn't lost. In fact, she felt more connected to something much greater than herself than she ever had before. It was a connection that transcended time and space. And in that moment, she knew, deep down in her soul, that she had crossed over to the other side. The moment of peace was only fleeting, however. As Amber began to absorb the beauty and stillness of this place, she began to notice familiar figures. Figures from her past, figures she had lost long ago. Her eyes widened as she saw her father, who had passed away when she was just a young woman. There was no mistaking it. The love she had for him in life, the bond they shared, was alive and well, even in the afterlife. He was there, standing before her, with a calm smile on his face, one that radiated warmth and understanding. And then, just behind him, she saw her grandmother. She had been a constant figure of support and love during Amber's childhood, and the sight of her now brought Amber an overwhelming sense of peace and safety. Her grandmother's gentle smile seemed to say, "You are safe now, my dear." The warmth of their presence flooded Amber's being, filling her heart with a sense of love and comfort she had never known in her earthly life. What struck Amber the most was the complete lack of fear. In the face of death, where most people would have felt uncertainty or dread, Amber felt none of that. Instead, she felt embraced by unconditional love. Her father and grandmother spoke to her, but it was not through words in the way we communicate on Earth. There was a knowing, a deep understanding that transcended language. Amber could feel their words in her very soul, and they reassured her that there was nothing to fear in the transition she was going through. Through this encounter, Amber realized that the concept of death, as she had always understood it, was wrong. It wasn't an ending. It was a continuation. It was a passage into something far more beautiful and loving than she could have ever imagined. She realized that what she had thought of as the final chapter in life was simply the beginning of a new existence, one that was filled with love, light, and peace. Her spirit felt free, unburdened, and at home in a place that felt more real than anything she had ever known. As Amber's father placed a hand on her shoulder, she could sense his deep love for her. The feeling was not confined to words, it was an overwhelming emotion that enveloped her completely. He reassured her that there was no more pain, no more suffering. It was as if he had been waiting for her, waiting for this very moment when she would cross over to the other side, where love and peace would forever be her companions. Despite the profound peace and overwhelming comfort she felt, Amber's journey did not end there. She was soon given a choice. As much as she wished to remain in this peaceful, heavenly place, Amber was told she could return to her earthly body. There was still unfinished business awaiting her. A newborn child who needed her, a family who would miss her, and a life still waiting to be lived. The decision was not easy, but with a sense of deep understanding, Amber chose to return. She knew that her purpose on Earth was not yet complete. And so, with a heavy heart but a renewed spirit, Amber returned to her physical body, where she would once again meet the challenges of life, but this time with a sense of peace and connection that would forever change her. She had crossed over, seen the other side, and returned with the knowledge that life in all its struggles and challenges was part of a much grander plan. The love and beauty she had encountered in that place would stay with her, reminding her that there is more to life than what we can see, more to our existence than we can possibly comprehend. Amber's near-death experience was not just a vision or a momentary encounter. It was a life-altering realization that the world we know is just a small piece of a much larger puzzle. A puzzle that at its core is made of love, connection, and eternal peace. During Amber Kavanaugh's near-death experience, the most profound and comforting aspect was the encounter with her deceased loved ones. As Amber drifted away from her physical body, she felt herself being guided by a gentle, loving force toward the radiant light that surrounded her. And it was in this light that she first saw them, the figures of her late father and grandmother who had passed away many years earlier. The moment Amber saw her father, she was overwhelmed with a rush of emotions. She could feel his presence even before her eyes fully focused on him. It was as though the love they had shared during his life had transcended time and space, still strong enough to bring him to her in the afterlife. The sight of him brought Amber an immediate sense of peace, as though all the struggles and heartaches she had experienced throughout her life had been wiped away in an instant. Her father stood before her with a calm, reassuring smile. There was no fear in his eyes, just love. Amber could sense that he was happy, at peace, and that he had been waiting for her. His gaze was filled with understanding and comfort, and it was clear that he had been a guide of sorts, showing Amber that there was nothing to fear about the transition she was going through. "I'm here, Amber," her father's presence seemed to say. "There is no pain here. There is only love and peace." The feeling of safety and unconditional love radiated from him, making Amber feel more at ease than she had ever felt in her life. She no longer worried about her earthly struggles or the unknowns of what would come next. With her father by her side, she knew that everything was going to be okay. Just behind her father, Amber noticed another figure, the soft, welcoming face of her grandmother. Amber's heart swelled as she looked at the woman who had been a constant presence in her childhood, a pillar of strength and love. Her grandmother's gentle smile was as familiar to Amber as the warmth of the sun. Like her father, her grandmother did not speak in words, but in the language of the soul. Amber could feel her grandmother's loving embrace, as though it was a tangible force enveloping her entire being. The words of comfort and understanding flowed directly into Amber's spirit. "You are safe now, my dear." Amber could feel her grandmother's message, clear and calming. "There is no need to fear. This is the next step in your journey." Amber's encounter with her father and grandmother filled her with a profound sense of love and warmth. She had always known that these figures had been important to her, but in this moment she understood the depth of their influence and their continued presence in her life, even beyond the physical realm. They weren't just memories or distant shadows. They were real, tangible souls who were still a part of her, and who had welcomed her into the afterlife with open arms. In the presence of her loved ones, Amber felt an overwhelming peace settle over her. She realized that the bond they had shared in life had not been severed by death. Rather, it had been transformed into something eternal, something that could never be broken. This realization shifted Amber's understanding of both life and death. Death was no longer an end, but a continuation, a journey into a place where love and connection persisted, beyond the limitations of the physical world. As she stood there, feeling the presence of her father and grandmother, Amber understood that their love for her had never wavered, that their presence was still a guiding light in her life, even as they existed in a different form. The peace they radiated was unlike anything Amber had ever known, and it reassured her in a way that words alone could never have done. This encounter with her deceased loved ones was not just a moment of comfort for Amber. It was a revelation. She understood, without a doubt, that life did not end with death. The soul endured, and the love that connected her to her family was eternal. She had crossed over to the afterlife, and in that moment, she knew that she was never truly alone. Amber Kavanaugh's experience in the afterlife was unlike anything she had ever imagined. As she stood in the presence of her deceased loved ones, a profound sense of peace washed over her. The space around her was bathed in a soft, radiant light, and everything felt serene and beautiful. The air was pure and filled with a sense of tranquility that transcended all earthly concerns. There were no harsh edges, no chaos, just a gentle, enveloping calm. In this peaceful realm, Amber felt completely at home. There was no fear, no pain, only an overwhelming sense of love and safety. She was not alone. She was surrounded by an invisible but comforting presence, as though she was part of something much greater than herself. The beauty of this place was indescribable, colors more vibrant than anything she had ever seen on Earth, and a sense of harmony that made her heart swell with joy. During her time in this peaceful afterlife, Amber received a message that would forever change her perspective on life and death. She realized with complete clarity that death was not an end, but a transition, one that led to a place of peace, love, and eternal connection. There was no reason to fear it, only to embrace it as part of the natural journey of the soul. This message gave Amber a deep sense of hope. She knew that, no matter what, she would always be surrounded by love, even after death. The afterlife was not some distant, cold, or scary place. It was a continuation of the bonds formed on Earth, a place where souls could experience peace and joy beyond anything they had known in life. This understanding brought Amber a profound sense of comfort and reassurance, one that she carried with her upon her return to the physical world. Despite the overwhelming peace Amber experienced in the afterlife, she was faced with a choice, one that no one ever expects to make. She could stay in this serene, beautiful place where she felt enveloped in love and light, or she could return to her body and continue her life on Earth. As she stood in this peaceful realm, Amber felt torn. The allure of the afterlife, with its tranquility and sense of purpose, was undeniable, yet she knew that her newborn child was still in need of her. In that moment, Amber made the heart-wrenching decision to return. She understood that her life on Earth, especially for the sake of her child, was not yet finished. Though she didn't want to leave the peace of the afterlife, the love for her child gave her the strength to return to her body and the world of the living. This decision changed Amber's life in profound ways. Upon returning to her earthly existence, she found herself profoundly connected to a higher spiritual realm. She saw life through a completely different lens, one that was filled with love, compassion, and a deeper understanding of the divine. Her experience in the afterlife gave her a new perspective on the value of life and death, one that transcended the mundane concerns of daily life. Amber became more attuned to her spirituality, focusing on living each day with purpose, love, and gratitude. She now understood that life was a precious gift, but that death was not something to fear. It was simply a transition to something even greater. The peace she had found in the afterlife was always with her, guiding her as she navigated the challenges of life and motherhood, and it gave her a sense of comfort and calm that she carried with her every day. Amber Kavanaugh's story has provided a profound source of reassurance for countless individuals grappling with the fear of death. Her near-death experience, one filled with peace, love, and the comforting presence of her deceased loved ones, has brought a fresh perspective on what happens after we pass away. For Amber, the afterlife was not a dark or frightening unknown, as many fear it to be, but rather a place of profound peace and light, free from the anxiety that death often brings. And it is this message, death is not something to fear, but rather a peaceful transition, that Amber has shared with the world, offering comfort to those struggling with their own anxieties about mortality. When Amber encountered her late father and grandmother during her NDE, it completely changed her understanding of life and death. They greeted her with love, warmth, and an overwhelming sense of peace that was beyond anything she had ever experienced in her earthly life. In their presence, Amber no longer feared the unknown. Instead, she felt an all-encompassing peace and a deep reassurance that death was not an end but a continuation. This revelation gave Amber a clear sense of purpose and understanding, which she now shares with others who fear the finality of death. Through her experience, Amber learned that death is not to be feared. Rather, it is a necessary transition, one that leads to a more serene and fulfilling existence. In the afterlife, Amber was surrounded by the love and care of her departed family members, reminding her that the bonds we share with loved ones do not vanish when we pass away. In fact, these bonds continue in the afterlife, where we are welcomed with open arms, surrounded by light, peace, and eternal love. Amber's story offers a reassuring picture of what awaits us when our time comes to leave this world, reinforcing the idea that death is not something to dread, but something to be embraced with peace in our hearts. For those who feel overwhelmed by the fear of death, Amber's message is one of hope. She encourages others to trust that there is nothing to fear in the afterlife, as death is a process of transformation that leads to a more beautiful existence. The fear of the unknown can be paralyzing, but Amber's story gives us a glimpse into a world beyond death, where the soul continues to live, and where there is peace, love, and reunion with those we have lost. Her experience proves that death is not a punishment or an end, but a continuation of our journey, one filled with joy and comfort. Amber's story has been instrumental in changing the way many people view death. By sharing her experience, she has opened the door to a new way of thinking about life after death, encouraging others to shed their fear and embrace the reality that death is not final. For Amber, it was a lesson in spiritual growth and divine understanding, one that has shaped her life and continues to guide her as she walks through the world with a renewed sense of peace, purpose, and love. Amber's experience has also reminded us that life is precious, and it is this awareness that makes the living experience so meaningful. While we are here, we must cherish the moments we have, knowing that death is not a cruel end, but a peaceful and loving transition. Amber's story is not only a powerful reminder of the love and support waiting for us in the afterlife, but also an invitation for all of us to live more fully in the present moment, with love, kindness, and compassion for ourselves and others. Her message is clear. Death is not something to fear, but a natural part of life's journey, and there is an eternal peace awaiting us all beyond the veil. Ave, knowing that death is not a cruel end, but a peaceful and loving transition. Amber's story is not only a powerful reminder of the love and support waiting for us in the afterlife, but also an invitation for all of us to live more fully in the present moment with love, kindness, and compassion for ourselves and others. Her message is clear.